So, folks, when we're talking about the money, we're talking about how much they spend. Now, y'all have heard me talk about on this show the lack of money being spent with black-owned media. Well, check this out. Pull up the graphic of 4 of these drug companies. These right here are 4 of the biggest drug companies when it comes to spending on marketing and advertising every year. Bristol Myers Squibb, AbbVie, AstraZeneca, and Merck. Okay? Now, I'm going to give y'all some numbers that are going to trip y'all out. AbbVie is a huge, huge spender. 2023, AbbVie dropped, y'all, $1.5 billion on advertising in this country. Guys, wrong graph, 1.5 billion, okay? 1.5 billion they spent. Black was 25 million. 25 million. Hispanic was 1.5 million. AstraZeneca, they spent 250 million on advertising. 1.7 million went to black media, black media. And then first of all, we don't know if that's black-owned media or black-targeted media. Just 1.7 million. $150,000 went to Latinos media. Bristol Squibb Myers, $400 million. 2.5 million black media, 2.5 million Hispanic media. Merck, $200 million. 5 million to black media, $250,000 to Hispanic. Now, here's the deal. Merck, y'all, had a black CEO, Ken Frazier. Go to my iPad. They wasn't spending money with black-owned media when he was a CEO for 10 years. 10 years. Not spending money with black-owned media. So then, let's look at Pfizer. Pfizer is spending around, look, almost $2 billion. They're spending money with different companies. Little of that is going to black-owned media. When you're watching all of these, especially network news shows, you're seeing all these pharmaceutical commercials. They're sitting here driving it to black folks. To black folks. You got drug companies right now running I saw a company running diabetes commercials on Fox News featuring black folks, and I'm like, y'all ain't talking to black-owned media? This is what is actually happening. Billions of dollars are being spent on advertising and marketing, and very, very little goes to black-owned media. Even though we know black people, when you look at HIV, when you look at cancer, when you look at diabetes, we can talk about the number of issues. A lot of us are on these drugs. So what they want black folks. Oh yeah, absolutely. Keep buying, keep spending your money. Yeah, but we're not gonna sit here and actually talk to anybody in black-owned media. So here you have the senators challenging them on the drug prices, and these companies are earning billions of dollars. And what is coming back to black-owned media? Crumbs. And they want us to think that a crumb is a meal. Now, I told y'all I was going to start calling people out. I need y'all to put the graphic up of those companies again. Show it again. And here are here are 4 of the largest, and we don't have Pfizer on here, but I'm challenging Pfizer as well. Bristol Myers Squibb, AbbVie, AstraZeneca, and Merck. It is an abomination what they are spending in terms of advertising, and little of that goes to black-owned media. So I hope y'all now understand when I'm laying these things out, because a lot of y'all are trying to understand why black-owned media can't do, why we don't have more anchors and more reporters and we don't have more producers, because you cannot afford to pay them if you're being frozen out of the economic pie. 0.5 to 1% of all advertising money spent in the country, that's $340 billion, is spent with black-owned media. So you want to know why CNN and the New York Times and Fox News and MSNBC and the Washington Post and all of these companies, how these folks are able to have large newsrooms and employing all these reporters? Easy. Because they're getting the dollars. So we're going to keep naming companies. And we're going to keep naming ad agencies. And we're going to keep calling folks out. If people are not doing business with Black-owned media, we are going to publicly challenge them because we should be participating in this economy just like white media. And this goes beyond just Black-owned media. This also speaks to Black law firms, Black accounting firms, Black transportation companies, Black catering companies, Black PR companies, Black event managers, Black audiovisual companies, and on and on and on. We are unable to build and create wealth because we are being frozen out of all of these industries, even when they have Black CEOs, and even when they have Black CMOs, chief marketing officers, and even when they have some Black board members. Now, there are some Black board members out there who are advocating and doing right for us. There are some Black CMOs who are doing that. But what is needed is for folks to understand that we all in this thing together. Last point before I go to my panel, speaking of Black CMOs, Walter Geer, who works for one of the ad agencies, he posted something on LinkedIn that I saw, and I said, right on, because I've been saying this for all time. So go ahead and pull this up. I'm reading it to you. So Walter posted on his LinkedIn, he said that it's Friday, so I'm just going to be on brand and say what's on my mind. One thing that surprised me about Black Executive CMO Alliance, Becca, at Cannes last year was the amount of Black CMOs out there carrying some major brands. I'm fortunate to work with 3 of those CMOs. All of the work is fire. So my question is, with all of the Black CCOs and Black-owned agencies all tapping into culture, and all of the Black CMOs out there that want their brands to authentically be a part of culture, why aren't we working together? I get and understand that selling through culturally relevant work to an all-white leadership is difficult. Know that people like myself and others can be your advocates, your allies, and your partners in these rooms. We can do beautiful work together. I'm just putting it out there. Hit me up, let's talk, and I won't hoard the work. I'll even make recommendations. I'm just saying we need to do better, and I'm not expecting you to respond here. So please feel free to message me privately. Hey, now here's why I think what Walter posted is great. He's right. We should be. The people who should be the biggest advocates for Black-owned media are Black CMOs. We in Black-owned media should be elevating them, talking about the great things that they're doing. But it requires it to be done. It requires resources to be flowing back and forth. We should be working with Black CMOs and Black-owned media and Black creators and ad agencies, because on the ad agency side, y'all, 90% of the leadership is white. It's white. And do you know what happens? The ad agencies, do you know where they get a lot of their leaders from? CMOs. So many of the Black CMOs could potentially become president and CEOs of Black ad agencies. And so this thing ain't gonna change if the Black creative folk in agencies are doing their own thing, and the Black CMOs are doing their own thing, and Black-owned media in our space, we're doing our own thing. It requires us having a willingness to work together in order to change the economic paradigm. What cannot happen is if Black people who are on boards, who are in senior leadership of companies, who are whether CEOs, COOs, or whether CMOs, whether you got Black people in agencies, what cannot happen if we have a mentality of, I'ma only get mine and damn everybody else. So I got my stock options, I got my check, I'm good. But first of all, the average CMO only lasts 3 years, so it ain't gonna be there that long anyway. But what changes do you make when you're there? If you're Ken Frazier at Merck, Real question. Did you change the economic paradigm in working with black companies while you were the CEO for 10 years? This cannot be solely about how do we make ourselves rich. I want all folks in black-owned media to eat. I'm not trying to keep all the money to myself. I want all of us to eat. Dr. King said, we individually are poor, but we collectively are wealthy. Nothing changes when we operate as individuals and until we move as a collective. Stokely Carmichael said, show me any black person who's made any change in this country. I will show you they did it through working with an organization. If we want to change, if we want to build wealth and create wealth in this country, it is going to take black CEOs, black CMOs, black creatives to be able to say, how can we be a difference to build up and build capacity for black-owned media? And that requires meeting with us, sending those RFPs, sending those IOs, actually making it happen. And then those of us on our side, making sure we're telling those stories, amplifying them. That's how we begin to change the game. Go to my panel here real quick. Michael, when we talk about, again, it's a money game. It's a money game. And the reality is we cannot be black and operate in silos when it's a money game. I just believe that if you are a black corporate executive, there should be a change when you leave as opposed to things being the same.
Yeah, it should be changed for the positive. Unfortunately, Roland, so many of our people don't understand this money game, don't understand business on this level. But we have to really understand how to push, whether it's a black CEO or not, but especially if there is. We spend billions of dollars a year with these various corporations, okay? It's about $1.7 trillion now, our GDP for African Americans. And then they take the overwhelming majority of those dollars that we spend with them and buy media, buy ads in white-owned media, and also use contractors, white-owned contractors. So we have to push on multiple levels. Black contractors when it comes to transportation, when it comes to advertising, janitorial services, things of this nature, because another myth that's out here is that you have a lot of these fake economic empowerment gurus who are selling entrepreneurship classes and just make our people think, oh, you just have to open up a business and just money's just going to flow into you. No, you need clients, you need contracts. Yep. Okay. Then at the same time, you have this attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which was a backlash to some advancements that were being made during the George Floyd protests. Yep. And getting commitments from corporations. You have that backlash coming at the same time. So we have to understand how to push it. This is something Dr. Claude Anderson has been talking about for years, getting a return on our investment from corporations.
And not only that, Matt, I'll say this here. The Executive Leadership Council, I need y'all doing more. Go to my iPad. I need EOC more. EOC is the collection of black corporate executives. And I've been to their dinner, and it's 3,000, 4,000 people there, and folks are suited and booted. But here's the deal. Many of these black folks, they out of their jobs when they hit 55 years of age. And so this is where organizations have got to step up and be far more aggressive at addressing this. And I'm going to say this as well. The NAACP, the National Urban League, National Action Network, Rainbow Push, fraternities and sororities, Links, Prince Hall Masons, Eastern Star, all of these black groups have got to understand if we are using, black churches as well, if we're utilizing our organizational power, we can make these folks move, but they not gonna move if we're silent and disorganized.
I don't disagree with anything you've said in this segment in terms of how there needs to be greater investment with black organizations. But I wouldn't be myself if I didn't say we are focusing on the wrong money part of this. This is a human rights issue. This is one of the ways I think the United States is at its sickest. The fact that in this country getting sick can be a quick road to bankruptcy. And the fact that we've got, pharmaceutical heads who will sit in front of Congress and say, yeah, I can't commit that we're going to lower the price of our drugs, but we're selling it elsewhere for a fraction of the price is a travesty. I think we as a country have to have a real conversation if we're going to talk about money, about just as a universal mores, not commodifying healthcare. The fact that we have commodified healthcare and we're sitting here talking about how it costs an extraordinarily high amount every year for people to get necessary medications is crazy. It's crazy. It's the sickest thing to me. And as a father, as a parent, as a part of a family, it is the thing that concerns me and my family most. And while, with all due respect, I do care about the investment with Black companies, I care more about the fact that your average American cannot afford to get sick with a serious healthcare issue and keep their finances the way they need to be. And that's the bigger conversation here.
Actually, the reason it's not the bigger conversation because mainstream media has that conversation but doesn't have the economic conversation. For me, I'm going to have both of the conversations. So the reason I put these two together, because they do go hand in hand. Because on one hand, one of the reasons that we are the sickest is we have lack of resources. One of the reasons that we are the sickest is that we are not participating economically. If you show me African Americans who have higher wealth, I'm going to show you better health outcomes. And so they go together when we talk about how we're being frozen out of the economic pie. Kelly.
Well, if I may.
Go ahead.
Roland, I think that's a little bit of a flawed premise, though.
No, it's
not.
I'm
saying I think it is. The fundamental system is problematic. The whole system of how healthcare works in this country is flawed. And the fact that you have to be in a higher echelon of earning to do better with the healthcare outcome should infuriate all of us.
No. But see, here's the deal, though. You're only, but the problem is, you're only looking at this only from healthcare. I'm not speaking of healthcare companies. I'm speaking of healthcare. I'm speaking of automotive. I'm speaking of every single business. What I outlined from the pharmaceutical companies applies to every single category. I'm only focused on them. And again, the problem is this is one of Black people's problems. We talk about all the other things and not the money. I'm talking about both. I'm going to talk about the prices, and I'm going to talk about we don't have access to the money. We often talk about the criminal justice system. We're not talking about the money. If you do a survey and ask most African Americans, talk about your top 5 issues, money is not going to be number 1. But I'm showing a perfect example of how we are frozen out of a system. And so my deal is, I say you could change both, but the deal is I'm not going to talk about one and ignore the other. I'm going to talk about both. I need both to happen. And I'm saying we have got to be willing as Black people to have an honest conversation about the money, because they actually don't mind us talking about, hey, let's lower health drug costs, and never bring up the money over here while they over here getting paid. Kelly.
I understand your point, Roland, but I am leaning towards what Matt is saying.
It's not an either or. It's both and.
I need to finish. I'm not saying it's an either or. It is a both and, but for purposes of this conversation being pharmaceutical companies and that clip specifically, my main takeaway from that clip was that they're not willing to match prices with Canada because of strict greed. Now, to your point, yes, yeah, but the greed, for me, as somebody who does deal with medical issues, as someone who just had a medical emergency not even 3 weeks ago, for that, my main takeaway was the fact that they have the power and yet they use it not to the benefit of the American people. But to your point, you are absolutely correct. Pharmaceutical companies pharmaceuticals as a whole, as an industry, also need to be lumped in with the other industries that you have mentioned regarding Black media and dollars flowing into Black media.
And greed is there too. And that's also greed.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that for purposes of this conversation, that one clip had me leaning more towards Matt's point for this specific conversation.
But it's not a specific conversation. I'm having a dual conversation. And what I'm trying to show is, here you had a Senate hearing. I'm also showing in terms of what they're spending. I'm saying I can have 2 conversations at one time and not one. And so this is a perfect example. They're making billions from folk, and then they are shorting black people. So I'm juxtaposing billions being earned. Here's a perfect example of us still getting short shrift even while they're making billions of dollars. And unfortunately, we see this in broad categories. And so what we're going to keep doing is showing people the actual numbers. And I'm purposely showing their logos because I want our people to be tweeting them on this very issue. Because again, we talk around these things versus directly to them. So every person here should be challenging Bristol Myers Squibb and AbbVie and AstraZeneca and Merck and Pfizer. And I can guarantee you they're all going to be hearing from my people because we're not going to let this go.